All right, ladies and gentlemen, you are locked on Falcons. I'm your host, Aaron Freeman, and today we're talking about the Falcons' 29-21 victory over the Carolina Panthers in Week 14 and whether or not this was the team's most complete game to date.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know me. I'm Aaron Freeman, been covering the Falcons for many years, formerly at falcfans.com, RIP, still going strong on Twitter at falcfans, writing weekly content over at the Falcoholic, the SB Nation website for the Atlanta Falcons, and of course, the host of this illustrious Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Falcons is a rapid reaction to the Falcons' Week 14 win over the Carolina Panthers, coming at you guys a few hours after the Falcons' 29-21 victory over the Panthers, giving you my thoughts on the game. We'll be giving you that game summary for those of you that missed the game or just need a recap of the highlights and lowlights for this Falcons team. We'll be giving out grades for the different phases of the game and talking about whether or not this game being the team's most complete to date and what's still at stake for this team as they continue to try to push for the postseason as this 2021 season unfolds. But before we get into all of that, guys, I want to thank you for making Locked On Falcons your first listen each and every day, whether you choose to listen to it on the variety of free and available podcast platforms such as Apple, Odyssey, Google, Spotify, as well as on YouTube, where you can find the video version of the show. Make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Falcons YouTube channel if you have not, and make sure you give us a like and leave a comment for what you like or don't like about the show. So let's jump into that game summary. And it didn't start well for the Falcons. They got a 3-and-out on their opening series. The Falcons failed to convert a 3rd and 7 on a 6-yard throw to Kyle Pitts. They got a questionable spot there. Arthur Smith chose to challenge it, did not win the challenge, and the Falcons on 4th and 1 decided to punt the ball in their own territory rather than go for it. Carolina got the ball, went down the field, on a 9-play touchdown scoring drive to take a 7-0 lead. They got a couple of nice runs from Cam Newton, including a 12-yard scoring run where the Falcons defense was out of position. But the Falcons did respond well, thanks to a 36-yard gain on Russell Gage on the second play of the ensuing series. He beat C.J. Henderson on a double move. Mike Davis would then go on a couple of plays later, convert a 4th and 1 on a 5-yard run. And then Gage had his 3rd catch of that series on the 13-yard conversion on a 3rd and 8. And then 2 plays later, Cordero Patterson, or should I say Scordero Patterson, punched it in with a 5-yard rushing touchdown to tie the game 7-7 with 3 minutes left in the first quarter. The Panthers then had a 3-and-out, and the Falcons started their second quarter drive, or started the drive that culminated going into the second quarter drive. They got a good punt from Thomas Morstead, so they didn't really move the ball that much on it. That punt was down at the 3-yard line. Carolina was able to move the ball to midfield, getting a couple of big plays from DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson for 20-plus yards, which would be the Panthers' only big plays of the game. But then on the 3rd and 6 in Falcons territory, the Falcons were able to dial up a blitz from Foye Oluokun. He was able to get pressure on Cam Newton, and that led to Newton missing a Falcons defender dropping into the throwing lane. That was Michael Walker picking off a pass in front of Amir Abdullah, and then basically sprinting 66 yards for a pick 6, giving the Falcons a 14-7 lead with 8.5 minutes left in the first half. And Walker getting his first career interception, similar to what we saw last week against Tampa Bay with Marlon Davidson being a pick 6. And Walker also had another thing to celebrate this past week, as I think his son was born a couple of days ago. So great week for Michael Walker. After that score, Panthers went 3-and-out again. And the Falcons got the ball back about 90 seconds later after that score, and Mike Davis converted a 3rd and 11 on a screen pass for 20 yards. And then you had an 11-yard run from Cordero Patterson, and that got the ball into the red zone. But the Falcons couldn't convert there. The Panthers went with a cover 0 blitz, an all-out blitz. The Falcons dialed up a screen pass, not the ideal play that you want in that situation, and the pressure led to an incompletion. So they wound up settling for a 32-yard field goal from Younghoe Koo, pushing their lead 17-7 with 3 minutes left in the half. PJ Walker then came into the game, replacing Cam Newton after that pick 6. And it seemed like the Panthers were looking for a spark on their offense and hoping that Walker would provide it. He did not. His second pass on the ensuing series was a prayer thrown up due to pressure, and AJ Terrell was able to snag the easy interception. PJ Walker channeling his Kyle Allen-ness on that particular play. But the Falcons failed to capitalize on the favorable field position from that turnover, and they took their 17-7 lead into halftime. And then Newton came back into the game to start out the third quarter for the Panthers. They were able to get some positive field position thanks to Younghoe Koo's opening kickoff to start out the second half going out of bounds. They started out the 40, and Newton was able to get the Panthers into scoring position thanks to an 11-yard run, and then he handed the ball off to Chuba Hubbard on the next play, and the Falcons defense was out of position, and Chuba Hubbard scored on a 17-yard scoring play. The Falcons then dialed up a shot play on the ensuing series, but Matt Ryan badly underthrew Tajay Sharp. Had he had hit him on that ball, that probably would have been a touchdown, but unfortunately the ball was underthrown, and Sharp couldn't reel it in. But Matt Ryan did look a little bit sharper on the ensuing next couple of passes, hitting his next couple of passes, getting the Falcons into Panthers territory. And then you had a roughing the passer penalty on the Panthers, gifting them another 15 yards. Unfortunately, a false start by Matt Hennessy, and the Panthers coverage being a little bit too good halted another drive for the Falcons in the red zone, and Koo had to settle for a 38-yard field goal to extend the Falcons lead 20-14. And the Panthers started to move the ball towards midfield before disaster struck for that team. Cam Newton stumbled trying to hand the ball off and fumbled the ball on the exchange, and Grady Jarrett was there to fall on the loose ball, and that gave the Falcons possession at Carolina's 49-yard line with 4.5 minutes left in the third quarter. Pitts then converted a 3rd and 13 on the ensuing drive to extend it. We saw the first of Quadri Olison of the day. He had 3 carries for a combined 24 yards to get the Falcons into the red zone. Patterson wasn't able to punch the ball in on his next carries, but then on a 3rd and 1 from inside the 5-yard line, the Falcons called a quarterback sneak for seemingly the first time all season long, and Matt Ryan was able to convert. And then he found Hayden Hurst wide open on the next play on a play action fake for a 3-yard score just as the fourth quarter was beginning. And the Falcons went for 2, trying to extend their lead to 28-14, but failed the conversion. And the officials missed a blatant face mask penalty on Matt Ryan. It should have been either a face mask or a roughing the passer penalty that would have given the Falcons another shot at the 2-point conversion, but no flag was thrown. So the Falcons were stuck with a 26-14 lead. On the ensuing Panthers series, Carolina converted a 4th and 2 on a 6-yard throw to Robbie Anderson. And then Dante Fowler stepped up, made a couple of key plays, got a tackle for loss on a QB keeper by Newton. And then a couple plays later on a 4th and 10, got an easy sack on Cam Newton when Newton slipped on his drop back. Falcons took over with 10 minutes left in the game at Carolina's 48-yard line after that turnover on downs. Unfortunately, they did not turn that into a touchdown as they wound up settling for a 48-yard field goal from Koo, pushing their lead at that point 29-14. PJ Walker then re-entered the game, managed to only complete 1 out of 5 pass attempts on the ensuing series, in part thanks to the Falcons' aggressive blitzing, getting after the quarterback. And the Falcons defense got a key stop, giving the offense the ball back with 5 minutes left to go on the clock with another turnover on downs from the Panthers. But disaster struck for the Falcons. Quadri Olison took the very first snap of the ensuing series, fumbled the ball, and then Walker wound up being much better on the ensuing series, completing 4 passes, 3 of them going to Robbie Anderson, including a 5-yard score where he was able to beat AJ Terrell when the Falcons dialed up a cover 0 blitz in the red zone. And basically, until that last play, the Falcons looked like they were going with much more soft zone coverage, which allowed Walker to find those open receivers, particularly Anderson, while being aggressive in the previous series, as I mentioned, by dialing up that pressure. Carolina then went for 2, but a false start penalty on left tackle Cameron Irving forced them to have to settle for the extra point, and they were now down 29-21 with 3 minutes and 11 seconds left in the game. And the Falcons were able to run out the clock at this point. Mike Davis got the ball. They were done with the whole Quadri Olison experience at that point in time, but things got backed up due to a Lee Smith holding call on the first down. But fortunately, the Falcons backed up on the 3rd and 14, were able to find an open Kyle Pitts on a little flat route where he was in motion and was wide open, a blown coverage seemingly from the Panthers, and he was able to get a 23-yard gain on that play to extend the drive. And then Davis continued to grind out clock to the 2-minute warning. And then Arthur Smith called the pivotal quarterback sneak of the decade with, after the 2-minute warning on a 3rd and a long 2, called another quarterback sneak. Matt Ryan converted on the 3-yard gain, and then they went into victory formation for the W. And so the Falcons walked away with their 6th win of the season. And we'll get more into the game grades as we continue today's Locked On Falcons and talk about whether or not this was the best and or most complete game to date for not only the Falcons defense, but the team overall as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. But before we get there, guys, I want to ask you, does it sound familiar when you got that one device that lets you catch the game live, another that's letting you stream your favorite TV shows, you're watching sports highlights on your phone, and then you got your father's, brothers, nephews, cousins, former roommate Deborah's login for your preferred streaming service? Well, I want to tell you about a simpler way to get all the entertainment that you love without any of the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream. It brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes, no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, besides not having to borrow Deborah's login, there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. And you can learn more about DirecTV Stream by going to directv.com. Again, that's directv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. So we're continuing today's Locked On Falcons by getting into the different grades that I hand out each and every week on these rapid reaction podcasts, talking about the pass offense, pass defense, run defense, and of course, the all-important 5th phase where we're talking about the special teams, or 3rd phase, but 5th phase of what I'm breaking it down as. So let's start off with the pass offense. I give it a C+. Again, a sort of middling performance for Matt Ryan, which you've seen regularly over the last, 4 to 6 weeks. But it was a good enough game for Matt Ryan in the passing attack. You saw Russell Gage get off to a hot start on that second series. He really worked CJ Henderson for 3 catches for 58 yards. It seemed like therefore the Panthers switched and put Stephon Gilmore on him a lot more as the game ensued, where Gilmore was starting out the game covering Kyle Pitts like he did in that Week 8 matchup. And Gage basically only had like 1 target the rest of the game. I think he had like a 6-yard catch in the 4th quarter, and that was it. Apparently Gilmore seemed to do his job, but that left Kyle Pitts more opportunities to make plays, and he did. And he finished with 5 catches for 61 yards. You had also Mike Davis doing his thing in the passing game like he did last week, 5 catches for 42 yards. The Falcons were a lot more aggressive this week, taking shots down the field, including a double move on the 36-yarder to Russell Gage on that second series, and then the underthrow to Tajay Sharp. So they were a little bit more aggressive. It seemed like they were a little bit more dink and dunk because they didn't necessarily take advantage of all those shot plays down the field, but it was nice to see the Falcons not afraid to push the ball down the field and not being afraid of this Panthers pass rush. And they didn't need to be, because the pass protection held up reasonably well. There were 7 hits given up, but no sacks. And it wasn't really like the pressure was really getting to Matt Ryan. A lot of those hits seemed to come on plays where the coverage was really good and he couldn't find an open receiver. And that led to Matt Ryan holding onto the ball a little bit longer than usual. So it seemed like the pass protection did give Matt Ryan plenty of time to find some of these open receivers, and it resulted in the Falcons being able to move the chains a number of times, including on a couple of 3rd and longs. They were able to convert a couple of 3rd and longs, which is a testament, I think, to the pass protection being able to hold up, where in previous games for the last 3 months, anytime we get into a third and long situation, you're expecting, a sack in this, particularly against this Carolina Panthers pass rush. You were expecting that, and we didn't really see that. So that's really what bumps it up to a C plus, even though the individual elements weren't necessarily great. It was just like they were able to do a good enough job. It was really about the rushing offense for the offense in terms of the positives this week. I gave the rushing offense a B plus, another solid week, their third consecutive 100+ yard game. They finished with 128 yards rushing in this game, 50% success rate on the ground on design runs. And if you need a reminder of what success rate is, it's a better way of measuring rushing efficiency than yards per carry, because it doesn't treat all yards as equal. It's based off of a sort of a pass fail basis depending on down and distance. So for example, you get more credit for a 3-yard gain on a 3rd and 2 than you would for getting a 7-yard gain on a 3rd and 11, which yards per carry would not necessarily do. So 50% success rate is ideal. You want 50% or above. That's the ideal measure of efficiency for a rushing attack. And so the Falcons achieved that. Patterson finished with 50% success on his 16 carries for 58 yards. Mike Davis had 36% success rate on his carries, but a lot of that was dragged down due to the late in the game where he was being asked to run out the clock. And so that dragged down his efficiency late in the game. It was funny listening to the commentary of this game where Jonathan Vilma was calling the game for Fox, and he was constantly talking about the Falcons running left in this game. And they did run the ball a lot left, particularly in the first half. They ran the ball 9 times to the left, 6 times up the middle, and 1 time to the right. And then late in the game, the Falcons started running the ball to the right when they were trying to run out the clock. And I see what Arthur Smith's up to. He's been listening to the podcast. The brand is strong, and he's just running to the right in disadvantageous situations just to drag down their averages while consistently running to the left to bring up that average, because he listened to the podcast a couple of weeks ago about how, the Falcons running game would improve if they stopped running to the left. So I see what he's up to. He's not slick. And so I understand what you're doing, Arthur. You're just running it to the right when it's disadvantageous so you can drag down that average. So, we see what's going on here on the Locked On Falcons podcast. But obviously, when we're talking about the running game, the big twist of the day was the QB sneaks. 2 QB sneaks. The Falcons were able to convert several short yardage plays, 5 of 6 in short yardage situations where 2 or less yards that they were able to successfully convert. And we know that's been a major problem for this team all year long. So it's finally nice to see Arthur Smith, even though he's not necessarily diversifying the direction in which he runs the ball by just continuing to run left until the end of the game, where now it's all of a sudden where running the ball to the right doesn't help you. But the fact that he's diversifying the run game by adding those QB sneaks into the lineup, slipping it in now where you're actually having the Falcons run QB sneaks when they should be running QB sneaks. If only they had done that on the opening series on that 4th and 1, but yeah, that's just nitpicking at this point in time. So let's move on to the defense. I give the pass defense a B minus. The Falcons finished with 4 quarterback hits on the stat sheet, but it did seem like they were getting a lot more pressure than that indicates. Talking about what we saw in the 4th quarter, where it seemed like when they were aggressive, when PJ Walker came into the game late in the 4th quarter, they were able to get after the quarterback. They got 3 other of those hits on that series, or technically 2, because one of them didn't count because it was a roughing the passer penalty on Deion Jones. But then on the next series, they went soft with the zone stuff, and Walker carved them up, and that led to that score late that really made us sweat there at the end of the game. So it looked like when the Falcons were being aggressive, it made sense. Outside of that series, the Falcons were pretty good at keeping Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore in check for the most part when they were asking those guys to their corners to man them up. I thought Fabian Moreau and AJ Terrell both looked very good in this game and kept those guys in check. You look at the stat sheet, and Anderson and Moore both had 84 yards. I think Anderson had 7 catches and Moore had 6 catches in this game. So you look at the box score and you think, oh, those guys had a pretty good game. But I think a lot of that was due to them getting open in zone coverage, not necessarily in man coverage. And one of the things I wrote about at the Falcoholic this past week in terms of the game plan that Dean Pease was going to present against his Carolina team was whether or not he would choose to play more man coverage or zone coverage, because you want to play zone coverage going up against a more mobile quarterback like Cam Newton. And so that made sense why the Falcons did play zone this week. But, in terms of their man coverage has been where their strength, their defense has lied over the last couple of weeks, where this defense has started playing better because they have been doing a much better job manning up opposing receivers these last couple of weeks. So that was, to me, an interesting wrinkle. But really, the key for the defense was the run defense, and I gave that unit a B minus in this game. It wasn't a great performance for the run defense. Carolina did have quite a bit of success running the football. They had a success rate of 44% on the design runs, but that would have been 50% if you didn't count the fumbles and the botched exchanges and all those various plays that were kind of bad luck plays for Carolina, with some, botched exchanges, a bad snap here, someone slipping on a play here or there. But the Falcons were able to mostly keep the Carolina Panthers running game in check on early downs, particularly first down, where Carolina only had a success rate of 36%. And basically, the game plan was to get Carolina into some disadvantageous longer downs if they could stop the run on those early downs and get them into third and long situations. And the Falcons didn't really do a great job of that, because Carolina didn't face that many third and long situations. They had only 3 third and longs, if you're counting third and long as, typically what it is being counted as 7 yards or more. But if you go down to third and 6, right, the 2 interceptions that Carolina threw in this game were on third and 6 plays. So if you want to include those into the mix and count those as third and longs, Carolina was only successful on 1 out of 5 third and long situations. And, basically on their other 6 tries on third down, they were able to convert about half of those. So clearly Carolina could not necessarily do a good job once they got into disadvantageous situations, which for them was 6 or more yards where they needed to convert. And then there were 2 failed fourth down conversions, and both of those were 4th and 10s. So clearly the Falcons again got into advantageous situations that led to Carolina's struggles as a passing team, and one of the worst passing teams in the NFL this season. And we saw Jeff Nixon in his first game taking over Joe Brady not necessarily prove that Joe Brady was the problem with their passing offense continuing to struggle and leading to Cam Newton getting benched, I guess, technically twice in this game. So, it wasn't a perfect performance for the run defense in the sense it didn't shut down Carolina, but it did a good enough job enough times to put the Falcons defense in advantageous situations. That's why I give them the B minus. And it's also worth noting that John Kaminsky was active in this game and played outside linebacker, replacing Ade Ogundeji, was out of the lineup due to an injury this week. And Kaminsky did get a tackle for loss and a run stop in this game. So testament to John Kaminsky getting active for the first time since week 4 and making the most of his opportunities now that he's not being asked to play inside and being played to play on the edge, which is probably a better fit for him moving forward. Now, moving on to special teams, I gave that unit a B plus. Another good day for Thomas Morstead punting. Younghoe Koo obviously had a good day kicking, and Avery Williams' 1 kickoff return for 38 yards was a good thing. The only bad play for the special teams in this game was a silly penalty on Frank Darby as a gunner on the opening possession, where he ran into the returner when he signaled for a fair catch. You also had the kickoff out of bounds to start the second quarter. So that's why I knocked him down a little bit, because that seemingly gave Carolina positive field position and ultimately led to some scores for them. But I give them a B plus. So, when we asked the question, was this the best performance to date for the Falcons defense? The answer is yes, at least based off of my grades. And then we'll talk a little bit more about whether or not this was also the most complete game for the Falcons as we continue today's rapid reaction episode, and talk a little bit more about what's at stake for the team when they face the San Francisco 49ers next week on the road. But before we get there, guys, I want to thank you for making Locked On Falcons your first listen each and every day. And of course, I always have recommendations for what your second listen should be. And that is, of course, if you're local to the Atlanta or Georgia area, or not local to the Atlanta, Georgia area, but still invested in those local teams. Of course, you got Locked On Braves, Locked On Hawks, and Locked On Bulldogs, all free and available on a variety of podcast platforms. Locked On Braves and Locked On Bulldogs are also free and available on YouTube, just like Locked On Falcons. But it is the holiday season, and why not grab a protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar? In fact, is even better than a protein, or better than a candy bar. And of course, I'm talking about Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar on the market. They're rich with decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, but they're healthy too, low in sugar, calories, carbs, and fat, but high in protein and fiber. You get the best of both worlds, both delicious and healthy. They have so many flavors, it's hard to choose from. I got a box of caramel macchiato, coconut brownie chunk, and white chocolate cheesecake coming to me later this week. You guys can order those flavors, as well as some part-time flavors like eggnog and caramel almond delight, or you can get the tried and trues like mint brownie, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, double chocolate, cookies and cream, etc. Built Bar gives you that extra fuel this holiday season to endure those endless shopping lines or to fight those shoppers for the next great deal. Make sure you check out Built Bar by heading over to built.com. And when you do, use the promo code LOCK15 and you'll get 15% off your order. Again, that's LOCKed15 for 15% off at built.com. It's a holiday season, and of course, BetOnline has had you covered all season long with the best odds, props, and lines. And of course, they will continue to have you covered for this holiday season as we march towards the NFL and college football playoffs. From playoff football to regular season basketball, hockey, boxing, UFC, all the way to your favorite Vegas casino games, BetOnline is the number one spot and the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. Just head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today. And when you do, make sure you use the promo code Locked On. You'll get 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. That means if you deposit $200, you get $100 in free money to play with this holiday season. So don't wait and take advantage of the amazing offers available at BetOnline, where the game starts. So wrapping up today's Locked On Falcons rapid reaction, we've had the Falcons defense step up these last couple of weeks and certainly outperformed the offense over the last 4 games, beginning in that Patriots game. We're starting to see the run game come together with 3 really good games the last couple of games in a row. You're also seeing Russell Gage. He stepped up last week against Tampa Bay, stepped up early in this game, and then you saw Kyle Pitts really finish this game. So you're starting to see the components of this Falcon team start to coming together, the individual components coming together. Now, before we talk about next week's matchup against the 49ers, I do want to note one notable injury that occurred on Sunday. That was Eric Harris. He went down with a chest injury early in the game on the opening drive. And it looked like, based off of the way he was sort of carrying his left arm, maybe it's a torn pectoral muscle, which would presumably put him out for the season. So that's something to monitor early this week, and we'll certainly give you updates when we get more information on that. But that would obviously mean that Jalen Hawkins would be inserted into the starting lineup for the remainder of the season. And I'm sure some of you guys have been waiting for that all season long, and we'll see what Hawkins can do as a full-time starter. This game was really the first game in a while that he had seen a majority of the snaps coming back from that, I think, ankle injury that he had a couple of weeks ago. It was kind of an up and down performance. There was a couple of mental errors that he made, but he did also basically do what Eric Harris did last time the Falcons played the Panthers and absolutely rocked Robbie Anderson on a 4th quarter hit right before that final drive where Anderson was able to score a touchdown. So we'll see what happens with that, but we'll also sort of see what happens next week with this Falcons team when they're facing a much tougher 49ers football team. The knock is going to continue to be with the Falcons win on Sunday against Carolina, that, they haven't really beaten a legit team all year long. It looked like that Saints win was legitimate in the moment, but since then, New Orleans is like 1-4 in their games, and their only win was a blowout win over the Jets this Sunday. So next week they got the 49ers, and as of I'm recording this, the 49ers, last I checked, were up against the Bengals, so they will probably finish today with a winning record if that holds. But the 49ers have played particularly well these last couple of weeks. They've had a 6-game stretch where they've averaged about 28 points per game. We've seen their pass rush come alive a little bit with Nick Bosa really getting on a hot streak these last 6 games where we've had 7 sacks in those 6 weeks. So this 49ers team is going to challenge the Falcons. It's going to challenge this offense to put up points. It's going to challenge this offensive line to be able to protect Matt Ryan. Last time we faced the 49ers back in 2019, Jake Matthews shut down Nick Bosa in that game. But now Nick Bosa spends the bulk of his time rushing from the other side, unlike back then when he was rushing primarily from the right side of the defense, the left side of the offense. Now, over the last 6 weeks, since he's been putting up these numbers, he's spent about 70%, according to PFF, of his pass rush snaps rushing from the left side of the defense, which is the right side of the offense. So that means he's going to be going up against Caleb McGarry. So my expectation is that the Falcons will go out of their way to give Caleb McGarry a lot of help next week against Nick Bosa. And if they can keep him in check, then they should be okay against the rest of that 49ers pass rush. But you never know in these games. So we'll see kind of with this 49ers team, whether or not this Falcons team is really starting to put things together and be for real, can they slow down the Shanahan offense? Can they stop the 49ers running game? Can they stop Deebo Samuel? Those are going to be some keys for the defense moving forward. And of course, the offensive line, if they can protect Matt Ryan, hopefully they'll be able to also run the football and be able to do enough in the passing game. Again, I'm not expecting Matt Ryan to drop 350 yards against 49ers defense next week, but if they can basically do the same thing that we've seen them do the last couple of weeks, which is run the football and just do enough, keep moving the chains on third downs and whatnot, and extend some drives, and punch it in and do a little bit better job in the red zone moving forward, then that should be enough for them to go toe-to-toe against this 49 team and be in a position to win that game. Of course, running the football is going to be tough going up against 49 defense, because 2 weeks ago they shut down Dalvin Cook in that Vikings game. So this is kind of also going to be a must-win game if the Falcons want to keep their playoff hopes alive. We'll see. Technically, they could lose this game, but basically they will not control their destiny. If they win against the 49ers, they will have some control over their destiny going into the final, 3 weeks of the season against Detroit, Buffalo, and New Orleans. But if they lose this game, they won't. Basically, they'll just need the rest of the NFC to choke to really have any shot at the postseason. So, I think this Panthers win is definitely a great development for this football team, a positive development, and certainly the most complete game for them to date. It basically edges out the Jets game in terms of at least my grades given all overall. So certainly the most complete game overall for the offense, defense, and special teams in that regard. So we'll see if they can build off of this. All right. They're getting a little bit of momentum. They were certainly more competitive than it seemed going against that Tampa Bay team last week. We also saw them look mostly good against Jacksonville. So they're slowly building this thing up. And so we're getting back to the conversation that we had earlier this season about this team and improving week to week. And so this is the time of year where and I know some of you guys don't want to see this team competing for the postseason because you guys are tankers through and through. But, for the rest of us normal people that don't complain about the Falcons winning games and entertaining us each and every Sunday, this is what you kind of want to see and see if this team can really put this together. This was not necessarily a complete game in a vacuum. Like if I measured this against a typical NFL team's game, I wouldn't look at this as a complete game because you had the run game. You didn't really have a huge positive performance for the pass offense, and the defense, while good, was not necessarily great in this game because they kind of let Carolina back into the game. But relative to what we've seen from this Falcons team, I certainly think it qualifies as a complete game. So we'll see if this team can build off of that as we continue these final 4 games over the final month of this regular season. They got a big game coming up against the 49ers. And of course, we'll have that covered for you guys, the rest of this week on Locked On Falcons. And of course, the rest of this week, you guys should also be checking out the Locked On Bets podcast. It's holiday season. You're spending money, getting those gifts out there. Maybe you want to put some money back in your pocket ahead of this playoff run and maybe put maybe some big bets on in January and potentially in February. So you want to pad your wallet a little bit. And of course, the Locked On Bets podcast gives you the best chance of doing that. Where handicapping expert Lee Sterling is giving you his daily picks, his blowout specials, and of course, his lock of the day every day on a variety of podcast platforms, including Apple, Odyssey, Google, and Spotify. So make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Bets podcast, guys. And that will do it for us here on Locked On Falcons. If you have any feedback that I talked about on any of the subjects I talked about today or previous days, or you want me to talk about in the future, later this week or in the coming weeks, of course, you can provide that feedback by hitting me up on Twitter at Locked On Falcons, on Facebook at Locked On Falcons. You can send an email to lockedonfalcons@mail.com. And of course, you can always leave a comment here on the Locked On Falcons YouTube channel. Guys, I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed Sunday's game, complete performance for the Falcons. So that will do it for us here on today's Rapid Reaction. Hope you had a great day. Until then.